Snubbed. Ole Miss ranked only 25th in a preseason college football poll.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Brian Smith, in for Stephen Willis. Thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We're going to be talking about my wish list later today. I've been to Ole Miss before, but there are a lot of things that I haven't seen. I've got a list of 6 things that I'd like to do with some interesting people at Ole Miss and have some fun with that. We're also going to talk about quarterback recruiting. Got a couple of interesting tidbits from people I've spoken with and some other news from around the recruiting world. But first, though, this is something that just shocked me as I was scrolling on X today. Ole Miss ranked 25th. That's right, 25th in a college football poll. Now, this is of no consequence, but it just shows you, A, how crazy college football can be, and B, how misguided some folks are. So I'm going to dive in with that first, and I'm going to share my screen for those of you that are on YouTube. But the ones that aren't, I'm going to read it off. I'm going to have some fun with this and just follow along. Again, don't take this too seriously, but college football, pollsters have their own opinions, and it is what it is. Now, when you think about college football polls, everybody's got one, right? There's a different way to look at it, no matter how you want to think about college football. And to be really honest, I don't have much of a thought process on any one group that I rank the highest. Phil Steele is probably the one that I use the most for just generic information, but their poll, there's still some nuance to it that is gut and eye test that sheer analytics do not utilize at all. So to that end, I'm just going to read off like teams outside the top 5. Like their top 5, Texas, Clemson, Penn State, Ohio State, Notre Dame. At least 3 of those schools are pretty much in every top 5, if not the majority. That's fine. But like I saw Ole Miss at 25th, and I was scanning through. It's like they're 12, 13, 14. Where's Ole Miss at? They're 25th. What? So here's the list from 11 to 25. You can rank this however you see fit, but this has some ramifications and whatnot, and it just perception matters. SMU's 11th. Michigan is 12th. Arizona State comes in at 13. The Texas Tech Red Raiders at 14. Okay. Louisville at 15. Alabama at 16. That's another one. We could have a whole podcast on that. Not that there's any Ole Miss fans here really interested in Alabama, but you get it. 17 is Georgia Tech. The Illini of Illinois at 18. Kansas State at 19. Brigham Young at 20. South Carolina at 21. Oklahoma at 22. Iowa State at 23. And Syracuse at 24. And then, of course, again, the Ole Miss Rebels at 25. So let me go through this for you and just give you some thoughts about why I like some of these and some of those that I'm like, we need to discuss. As somebody that studies the transfer portal every day, and I do mean every day, I have a pretty good insight on some of these, and I can bring up questions about anybody, Ole Miss included, because they certainly are not a team without flaws. But like SMU, that's probably the poster child for you're taking a shot in the dark. They are now the hunted, not the hunter. They're a program with a good quarterback, but one that looked like he was a deer in headlights when they played at Happy Valley against Penn State. And most importantly, do you really think that a team that hit the home run last year in the transfer portal via the offensive line is going to be able to hit another home run like year after year? Because SMU, I can tell you flat out, as somebody who's followed recruiting for 30 plus years, does not recruit O-line at a high enough level to just plug and play guys. I haven't even looked at SMU's offensive line depth chart. You've got them 11th. I guarantee you they take a step back up front this year. And it's nothing against their coaches. They just don't have enough players consistently. And you're probably not going to have 2 years in a row. This is an old adage in college football where you have a lot of luck up front with guys not only hitting, but not being injured. Take it for what it's worth. Michigan at 12, I think, is actually about right. They're somewhere in that, say, 7 to 15 range. It just depends on how quarterback works out, whether Bryce Underwood does something. Okay. Arizona State, this one is interesting. 13, Cam Scatterby is in this thing they call the National Football League now. Could Arizona State rise up again? Yeah. They're deeper. They're absolutely better. They've got a great young head coach. But do I think that they're a lot different than SMU in the fact that, okay, now you are, ready for this, the hunted, not the hunter. It's different. I don't trust any Big 12 team with their D-lines. They don't recruit that spot well enough. It is what it is. I love their quarterback, Levitt, the young guy. He is an NFL player in waiting, but I don't see them being a threat over Ole Miss. Texas Tech, too many guys out of the portal, spend a lot of money. I'm concerned about their locker room, but they did get good players. They spent money, and they've got a good coaching staff, a lot of Texas kids coming back home, etc. They're an interesting pick. They could end up in that area, maybe, but it's still a little iffy. Louisville at 15, I will not go against Brom when he gets a quarterback he likes. He got Miller Moss. I actually think they might be a little higher at the end of the year than 15th. Beginning of the year, we'll see. But if Miller Moss assimilates to that offense, Brom can coach quarterbacks. I would have Ole Miss a little ahead of them, but that pick on Louisville is probably about accurate. Alabama at 16 is ridiculous. I am no Bama fan in any way, shape, or form, but not having them in the top 15 is comical. Whatever. Georgia Tech at 17, they've got a good coaching staff. They can coach O-line. They've got a quarterback and Haynes King that's gutsy. Okay, I'm okay with that. Illinois at 18, I might have them a little higher. They're very well coached, power football team. They've done a pretty good job of retaining talent for the most part. We'll see if Bielema and his crew, and again, this is another team. They are now the hunted, not the hunter. So that's a little different. Kansas State at 19 feels about right. BYU at 20, that's fine. South Carolina, 21, I might have them a little higher than that. They got the returning quarterback. They've got a couple NFL guys on offense and defense that are skill players, edge players. Probably a little low for South Carolina. Oklahoma at 22, that's a shot in the dark. They could be a lot of things. I wouldn't want to touch them with a 10-foot pole. New offensive coordinator. They had the quarterback coming in from Washington State who is elite. But that team was decimated by injuries last year. Their top 6 receivers at one point or other were banged up. We'll see how they are, and they play a brutal schedule. So Oklahoma, I don't even want to touch. Iowa State at 23rd, above Ole Miss, yeah, I'm not buying that. They've got a good program in general, but they don't have enough guys that are just truly twitchy for me on the trench line, and they don't have enough guys in the secondary that I think are going to be stoppers in big moments against a team like if they played Ole Miss. I don't see it. Syracuse lost too much. They're number 24. I think that losing Pena, the guy that was their slot receiver and their heart and soul of their offense last year, he transferred to Penn State, is going to gut them a little bit. We'll see how that goes, but I think Fran Brown's done a nice job. Then again, Ole Miss at 25th. For those that are curious, Ole Miss, for me, I have them as a program that is somewhere in the, let's say, 8 to 12 range this year. I am all in on Austin Simmons, and I fully understand that Austin Simmons, being a guy that is not played much at Ole Miss, and most people haven't seen him, he's not a returning starter. All those things are why I understand the metrics, but it's also why I brought up earlier in the podcast that the eye test and certain gut feels go above analytics. And this is one of those times. If I miss on Austin Simmons, by all means, throw empties at me. But I think that he is going to be not a good quarterback this year at Ole Miss. By the midpoint of the season, he'll be one of the upper echelon quarterbacks in the SEC. And I'm going to give you the same points that I brought up on this pod before during other episodes. Number one, he has a gun for an arm. He throws roughly 95 miles an hour off the bump. Now, I know he's not pitching for Ole Miss right now, but that still puts things in perspective. If he's got to throw it deep out, and the coverage is pretty good, he can still fit it in there. Secondarily, he's not smart. He is ridiculously intelligent. He graduated high school 2 years early with a GPA of like a 5 on a 4.0 scale. He took like every elite class you could and smoked it. Those are the kind of guys that usually do well at quarterback. And then third, Lane Kiffin's coaching him. He's going to find a way to place him in good circumstances. Austin Simmons is going to be that guy by the middle of the year. Can they get through the first few games and get him assimilated into the offense like everybody else. You got to see that. But I think he's going to be a dude, and I think Ole Miss is going to go around 10-2 this year. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. When we come back, we're going to talk some Ole Miss quarterback recruiting. Speaking of quarterbacks, and we're also going to talk about my wish list coming up after that in terms of Ole Miss. What would I like to do on campus? I think some of you are going to actually find that pretty interesting. That is next here on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off draws closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. So if you want to go an NBA playoff game, yeah, you can definitely save on it and make yourself much happier by going to the arena with more money in your pocket. But you could also do that with comedy, theater. You could be doing that to go to just about anything, baseball game, whatever you would like. And there's an all-in pricing feature so you don't get shocked at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We have some Ole Miss quarterback scuttlebutt, if you will, along the recruiting trail. This is from a variety of people, including myself, all combined. But this is why quarterback recruiting in Ole Miss are always a focal point, it seems. The other day, Malachi Smith commits out of the portal. He had played one season for Oklahoma State, in case you missed it. I talked about him extensively the other day. Powerful arm, played in the state of California, went to Oak State for 1 year. Now he's with the Rebels. He will be a redshirt freshman, I believe it is, for this next year. I don't think he played enough to end up being a sophomore, but either way, he's a young player with the Rebels. But there's still the question of what's going on with the class of 26. You got one guy committed, really good player, Reese Wise, and you also have other options, really significant ones. Let's talk about that. Landon Duckworth, the young man from Jackson, Alabama, kid I had a chance to see at Elite 11. His list seems to be dwindling, and it's kind of, shall we say, getting to the point where only thing that matters is just the order of the visits and him just making his gut decision. He's eventually only going to be able to pick one. Ole Miss has been considered the leader for a while, but Auburn's now involved. And you also have, I still say this, I've said it for a while, Florida State, which is a team that I thought would have a really good shot at him. And I cover Florida State. I run the Locked On Seminoles podcast. They have faded in some capacity. I don't know what the deal is, but he didn't really take the overtures and make the trip to Tallahassee this spring. I don't know what's going on with that. They're a wild card because Gus Malzahn has recruited him hard before, but for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out. And then the other one is the one that I think could come back around. This is so ironic. When I first met Landon, he was committed to South Carolina. Then he decommitted, went through the process, and here we are. But they're still hanging around, and they're still coming after him. With the way Lenora Sellers performed last year, he really improved. Got to give the young man credit. I believe Landon Duckworth could still end up in Columbia. It's at least a possibility. Now, a couple of questions. Number one, does he care that Ole Miss has young quarterbacks committed and or already on the roster? Because it's both. It's not one or the other. They got two young quarterbacks that are on the roster now that Malachi's come, and they've got Reese Wise. I don't get the impression that Duck cares that much, but that's something you got to ask. Secondarily, what about the opportunity for some of the other schools to say you'd be the only guy? Let's use Auburn for the best example. Their offense would fit him very well, but they got Deuce Knight, the kid that Ole Miss tried to get, on the roster, and he's killing it this spring. Is he going to want to go behind Deuce, be 1 year behind him, and he's already been through the playbook, probably going to play some this year? I don't think so. I already gave my thoughts on Florida State. I don't see it. There's something off there. I don't know what the full scope is. And then you have South Carolina. In my opinion, it'll come down to South Carolina and Ole Miss because I just think Auburn won't work out. my gut, this is not from Landon Duckworth. This is just Brian Smith's thought here. If he ends up at Auburn, it will surprise me. South Carolina doesn't have that guy at quarterback from last year, and it's a scenario where he could get away from home a little bit, be a little different. If he'd have went to Auburn early, I wouldn't have been surprised. But like, if you're an in-state kid in Alabama, and I live in this state, it's different. Those kids either want to go to Bama or Auburn or they don't. For the most part, the only reason kids nowadays are dragging it out is NIL, and I don't get the sense that's like Landon's a really humble kid. I don't think that's what the main vibe is here. Really nice young man, very respectful. I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. He'll figure that out wherever he goes, and he'll be compensated for his physical talents and his overall well-being as a person. Like, he's the kind of guy that boosters and fans will want to be around. So it won't matter if it's Auburn, Ole Miss, or wherever. But do not be surprised if this one ends a little quicker than some might have thought. I would not be surprised if there was some kind of rearrangement with the official visits or anything else. I still think it's Ole Miss or South Carolina in the end. I don't know. I just think Auburn would have been that team. And the other thing, and this is what I was told, Auburn is still truly going after Travis Burgess. That's a name you may not know. He plays at Grayson High School in Georgia. 6'4", 6'5", big kid, really good guy too, kind of like Landon. They were actually at the same Elite 11 about a month ago. And he's a guy that is big time in terms of long-term projection. He's not quite to the level of a playmaker that Landon is right now. Landon's super, super athlete. Travis is pretty good, but I think Auburn's got a better shot with him. They might even prefer him in some ways. I don't know why, but I've heard that. We'll see. Now, there's also Ryder Lyons to consider. For those that don't remember, Jared Curtis was a 5-star quarterback that was on the board until just a few days ago. He picked the Georgia Bulldogs. Well, Georgia was after Landon, so that's over with. Not going there. Secondarily, it's an opportunity for him, shall we say, to look at different opportunities down the road. Ole Miss is a place that already had Ryder Lyons come down the pike for a spring visit. He's been to campus before. So that's another good thing for Ole Miss. They don't have to worry about Georgia. Georgia is always a threat with anybody. They do a tremendous job as a staff recruiting, but they're off the board. SC is a program where his brother actually plays as a tight end, and I think his name's Walker. If that's the program he ends up at, for those that don't know, Jonas Williams is a quarterback commitment for the USC Trojans in the class of 26. And for all intents and purposes, Ryder Lyons is really a class of 27 kid because he's LDS. He's going to do a 1-year mission before he enrolls at the school of his choice. So USC still going after him, Oregon, etc. But Ole Miss is involved. I think they've got a better shot than some think. I actually read an article by Brandon Huffman, and he's a longtime recruiting analyst out on the West Coast. And he thinks that USC and Oregon are certainly right there, and he thinks BYU's the third most likely. Ole Miss, to me, is more likely than that because, A, Ryder is familiar with Jackson Dart. He's actually spoken to him about being at Ole Miss. B, he's visited multiple times. For a Northern California kid, and he's from Folsom, California, to visit Ole Miss multiple times is not normal. And C, his teammate is committed to Ole Miss, his slot receiver. There's just too many trends there for me to think that Ole Miss is outside the top 3. Now, BYU, make no mistake, is a team that I think is a definite threat. I mean, it is the LDS school. It's Church of Latter-day Saints. I get it. Oregon was the finalist that came up short for Jared Curtis, so they need a quarterback in this class, but he's going to be 27 technically. Do they pivot? I don't know. And SC is SC. Again, his brother is there, so that's certainly a possibility. When we come back, I'm going to give my list on the opportunities that I would like to take for a visit to Ole Miss. Probably need multiple visits to do these things, but some of these are probably things that y'all have done yourself and a few you probably like to do as well, including the Grove, among other things. So when we come back, I'm going to present that here on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to X Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football 25, Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed, as easily as you stream your favorite television shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorites like Netflix, Prime, Disney, Max, and many more. I'm not a gamer, but I can speak to what that last point was very, very well. I use my Fire TV stick every day. YouTube TV. I go and check out Max. I go and check out Prime. I've done just about anything that you can imagine on using apps. And there's a bunch of free ones too that you can use, and it's a lot of fun. So if you don't have a Fire Stick, I believe it's something you should at least look at. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and comparable controller is required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Generation. Here is my countdown for top things to do at Ole Miss. Caveat, number 6 really helps me do the other 5. And it's one that I'm sure everybody here would vote for and probably give I don't want to say sizable, a massive amount of money to do because it would just be cool. This one is not realistic, but it's still a part of my wish list. And I'd like somebody to do it if it even was this person. And the person I'd like to give me kind of an overview of what they like about Ole Miss, just give a little history and why they went there, is none other than the great one himself, Archie Manning. If you're going to learn about Ole Miss, Archie, I mean, is there a better opportunity? He represented the school as a good person and as a student athlete. He was obviously tremendous as the quarterback for the Rebels in the 1960s. So that would be my guy. But here's why I put the caveat by it. Number 1 here, he's a guy that's been to campus so many times. He sent multiple children there, and he's been back so many things. He would know every path, every single route to take to cut time, to make it more convenient, know when to go, when not to go. You ever had somebody like that if you're trying to find a restaurant or something in a city? Archie Manning would be the guy. So to that point, here's my other 5. I'd want to go to the Grove, and I'd want to go when it was best, not just for the big football game against LSU or whatever. Talk about it on any game day and like where to go and who to talk to at the Grove. Find out stuff. Archie would obviously be good with that, I'm sure. And I'd probably also like to get some tips on the best things to wear and everything else, because I know that's a scene. But the Grove would be a lot of fun for me, and just like it is for a lot of other people. And if you're on YouTube, comment, what's your favorite thing about the Grove? I'm curious. I've never been on a game day. Only time I went to Ole Miss was a couple years ago for a camp in the summer. A bunch of recruits I went with. Kiffin had a camp there and stuff, and I was there. But I haven't been during a game day. Number 4. This is something that's not very realistic either, but it just makes me curious about Kiffin himself, as well as the Ole Miss offense. This is what I wrote down in my notes, so here goes. I'd like to see Lane Kiffin's practice sheet, understand and learn why Kiffin decides to be so creative with 3rd down and especially his 4th down play calls. Let me explain. Kiffin takes a lot of chances. That's not a newsflash. But why he does it based on analytics and gut, I'd like to ask him face-to-face, okay, 4th and 4, your opponent's 37. It's the dead zone. It's too long for a field goal, borderline too close to kick it away. Why would you go with play call A over B? Why not just something simple like a pigtail route or something like that to get a – he'll try to take a shot sometimes more than others. Another example of that, one of my favorite play callers, as I'm sure many can relate to, is Steve Spurrier. Kiffin has some correlations with Steve with that. He'd throw deep. He did not care. Remember that 4th down bomb he threw? It was like 4th and 11 at Tennessee, and they scored a touchdown on it, and the entire stadium just went silent. Kiffin likes that kind of stuff. I just like to get in his head and find out why he does what he does. And, of course, I understand it's matchups each game, but I really like his aggressive style, and I'd like to get into the back end of that. Number 3 is just a generic overview because I've started talking about this game. I'll talk about it again coming up next week. the LSU and Ole Miss game, just any of them. It doesn't have to be this year, although I might go. I'd like to see that because it's a border state rivalry game. LSU has a rabid fan base. And I think Ole Miss has finally gotten to the point where they're at least similar in talent to LSU. Like LSU's talent is usually gross. But I just think it would be neat to see that game because there's so much that goes into it. And when Ole Miss defeats LSU, it's a really big deal for the program. And it's part of the reason, in my opinion, that Ole Miss has been able to elevate their program. They beat them twice. The last 2 times they've been at home. They got a chance to do it again this year. It changes your program when you win games like that. Bama, LSU, Florida, Georgia. It's different. LSU is one of those special programs in the SEC. I think it would be a really fun time to check out that game. Number 2 might surprise some people. Now, I do have a caveat on this, but on the timing, but I would love to see an Ole Miss baseball game in a quality, maybe a series, but I don't want it to be when it's just hot as bejesus. I hate going to baseball games when it's super hot and just sitting there in the sun. I can't stand it. But Ole Miss has obviously won a recent national title, and I saw the stadium when I was on campus a couple of years ago, and I'm like, that is a nice place. It looks like a great, not just great, an insanely fun opportunity because everything, the way they've got it set up, the location, parking lots, everything else, it looks like a lot of fun to me. And I've watched a few of their games on TV before. Count me in. At some point, I'm going to do an Ole Miss baseball game, or again, maybe a series. And finally, this is my number 1, and I would wager heavily, many of you have this on your Ole Miss bucket list. I would like to walk around Juice and Bubba, like have some fun with that. Obviously, they've got 2 dogs now. I'm not sure if Landry and Presley would allow that, but maybe they would go too. I love dogs, and Juice has been a showstopper on campus, goes out and gets the kicking tee at the Arkansas game a couple years ago, stuff like that. They have found all kinds of ways to make him a fun part of the Ole Miss program, and I assume Bubba's going to be the same way. I don't know the full backstory on that. I didn't even know they had him until just recently, and that's cool. I love that his daughters are on campus having fun with them, but I'd like to walk them, take them to the dog park, let them kind of go around campus. I'm sure people pet them all the time on campus. And then at the end, kind of go down to the square. I know they got a bunch of restaurants there. I went to one of them, the diner, when I was at Ole Miss before. I'd like to find some place where they could be allowed. I'm not sure which places are. Let Bubba and Juice kind of hang out and just soak it up, because eating some snacks, hanging out with your dog, big thumbs up. I think that would be a lot of fun. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to learn all the latest happenings with the Ole Miss Rebels football program. I am Brian Smith in for Stephen Willis. You can check me out on the Portal podcast and on Locked On Seminoles any day of the week, but I'll be here for a good while longer as Stephen slowly recuperates. Been talking to him a little bit. He's getting better, and I look forward to his return, but I do enjoy being here while he is gone. Thank you once again. We will see you again soon here on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.